Hi, and welcome to the New Fly Fisher. On today's program, we are in the magnificent highlands of Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, and we're going to be fishing for the king of sportfish, the mighty Atlantic salmon, in the beautiful Margaree Valley. It's going to be a great show, and it starts now.
Ooh, that's a nice sized fish. What?
Absolutely fantastic.
The New Fly Fisher is supported by Fish Nova Scotia, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada.
On today's show, the New Fly Fisher crew makes a long-awaited return to Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, and the beautiful Margaree River, where we'll be fishing for bright summer salmon. Like many before me, my heart always skips a beat when I cross the Canso Causeway, which links Cape Breton Island with the mainland of Nova Scotia. There's a special kind of magic to this place. Coming here always makes me feel a bit like stepping back in time to a simpler and gentler age. Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, understood this well when he famously said back in 1885, "I have traveled the globe. I have seen the Canadian and American Rockies, the Andes, the Alps, and the Highlands of Scotland. But for simple beauty, Cape Breton rivals them all." Which is why Bell chose to build his family's summer estate here, called Ben Brae, which is Gaelic for beautiful mountain, near the charming village of Bedeck on the shores of the Bredor Lakes. I have to agree with Bell's assessment. It's a wonderful spot for a family vacation, with breathtaking vistas of land and sea, lots of great outdoor activities and cultural events, and of course, some outstanding fishing opportunities. And at the top of the list for anglers near and far is fly fishing for wild Atlantic salmon on the world-famous Margaree River. Our destination and home for the week is the lovely and historic Normaway Inn, which is perfectly situated in the middle of the Margaree Valley, just a stone's throw from the river and some of its top pools. Opened in 1928, the Normaway Inn has been welcoming tourists and traveling anglers from around the world for nearly a century. I settle into one of their comfortable cabins for the night and get my gear ready for the next day. It's good to be back in the valley again. It's a beautiful morning, promising a bright sunny day on my first day on the river. I've got a couple of days to kill before I'm to meet up with my good buddy Robert Chesson, one of the top guides on the river. Not surprisingly, he's busy guiding some clients, so I'm on my own for a bit. Luckily, I know this river pretty well myself, having fished it regularly for many years. It's mid-July and the water is nice, but starting to get a bit on the low side. The river is running clear and water temperatures are good. It's classic summer dry fly conditions. So it's early morning and we're in the mid-river section of the fishable water of the river. We're going to fish a nice big holding pool in that section. There's a nice riffly run at the top, fairly swift. It comes in, slows down, big deep bowl. As it swings around, there's some interesting rock structure out there where fish will often lay, and it's an ideal spot for some dry fly fishing. So it's just past 6 a.m., the time at which we're legally allowed to fish. So we've got our dry fly on, Let's give it a go. Having found no willing takers at my first stop, I decided to head way up the valley to a favorite upriver pool. The Margaree River is a Canadian heritage river, 120 kilometers in total length, and drains an area of over 1,300 square kilometers in northern Cape Breton Island. The river system is made up of two main branches. The northeast Margaree, which originates high up in the mountains just south of Cape Breton Highlands National Park and flows in a southerly direction until it meets up with the southwest Margaree, which flows north from Lake Ainslie. The two branches come together at Margaree Forks, where they form the main stem or lower river. The lower river meanders across a broad pastoral floodplain in a northeasterly direction, flowing into a large estuary and then out into the Gulf of St. Lawrence at Margaree Harbor. The lower river is where you'll find the largest pools on the river, where double-handed rods are often used to good effect, particularly in high water. Above the forks, the northeast Margaree would be classified as a medium-sized river, which becomes progressively swifter and constricted by the Highland Mountains the higher up you go. The uppermost 30 kilometers of the northeast Margaree, above Big Interval Bridge, is a protected wilderness area and sanctuary for the salmon, where angling is not permitted. The lower 20 kilometers of the river are open exclusively to fly angling and feature over 50 named pools with lots of fishable pockets and runs in between. Although there are some salmon who run up the southwest branch, primarily in the fall, the majority of the salmon run, and therefore salmon fishing, is done in the northeast branch and in the lower river. The salmon angling season on the Margaree runs from June 1st to October 31st, making it one of the longest in eastern Canada. The river hosts two distinct runs of wild Atlantic salmon, one that enters the river during the summer months, and another run that comes later in the fall. Besides Atlantic salmon, the Margaree also has good populations of native sea run and resident brook trout, as well as an increasing number of sea run brown trout that are often found hanging out with their larger salmon cousins. Nova Scotia offers the most affordable, accessible Atlantic salmon fishing in the world. A non-resident license for 1 week of salmon angling is less than $65 Canadian, and there are no daily water access fees or private waters. Thanks to a long-standing act of law, all freshwater lakes, rivers, and streams in the province are considered public waters. Anglers are therefore free to fish when and where they wish, within the established laws and regulations. Upon arrival at the pool, I build a small fire to chase away the morning chill, and am delighted when my good friend and local guide, Joya Usher, shows up with a group of friends in tow. Turns out, Joya was hosting a women's fly fishing retreat, and the morning's lesson was about to begin. Having arrived at the pool before them, river etiquette gave me the first crack at the pool, but I was more than happy to watch the proceedings instead. I always enjoy welcoming new anglers to our sport, and I'm especially pleased to see so many women and youngsters picking it up these days. They are enriching our community and helping to renew and preserve our traditions. I think it's nice to watch someone become a fly fisher and to help them when you can.
So with your wet fly, you would cast on a 45-degree angle so that's a tight line and then it swings across the current. But with a dry fly, you're trying to imitate something that's fallen from the sky and is just drifting with no drag whatsoever, meaning a drag, you'll hear people say a drag-free drift. So with the double hand rod, you really want to focus on casting across the stream or even slightly upstream with the dry fly. So you would go to the end of your shooting head like you would do same with a wet fly, and just very short, quick little pops. So my name's Joya Usher. I'm a fly fishing guide from Breton, Nova Scotia, and we're here today on the Margaree River on Cape Breton Island as part of one of my women's fly fishing retreats. One of the most rewarding parts about teaching women to fly fish is giving back to that community. I don't find that everybody has a mentor, maybe in the same way that I did growing up. My dad taught me a lot of things. I had a lot of great male mentors and female mentors that really paved the way for me to learn what I do now. And to be able to be the catalyst for someone to go to a river and hook their first trout or salmon or even raise a fish is a really rewarding experience. It's fun to go teach someone the conservation, the ethics, the etiquette, and know that if that person gets hooked into it, that they will join the many groups of stewards that are going to look after the rivers, will monitor the rivers, donate, give back, and just look after the species in general. So that's why I do it.
After a break for a welcome nap and a good meal at the Normway, I head out again for an evening's fishing session at one of the pools in the lower river. So folks, we're down here on one of the lowest pools on the river. A short distance down the river is the head of tide, where the tidal water pushes up twice a day and fills the estuary and generally brings up fresh fish on every tide. When they break from the head of tide and start running the river, this is one of the first places they will go, and virtually every fish in the river has to go through here. It can be dead or it can be very active. It's constantly changing as fresh fish arrive, navigate through the shallow water and up the gravel bar and beyond. It's a great place to fish dry as well as wet. It's not a long fish, 5 to 10 minutes, and it's constantly changing. So you may have no fish the first pass or two, and then boom, suddenly there's a fresh fish in front of you. So we're gonna start with a dry fly because the temperature of the water and the air temperature is perfect for dry fly. Fish it up, and then we're gonna turn around with a wet fly and come back through this funnel. Let's give it a go. So we're just gonna start with a few short casts here in the tail of the funnel. Often the fish are very close and it's not a particularly big pool or hard pool to fish. And then we're just gonna work our way up this seam and to the top, and then we will come back down with a wet fly. So as we move up the pool, we want to cast out in a little bit further out into the middle and then to the far side. Not super far. The fish are more likely to be in the funnel, or the V as they call it, right close to us. All right, so we've tried it with a dry fly and we didn't see anything, so we're going to go to the top of the little pool and we're going to swing a wet fly through, which is often very effective. Even though we're primarily fishing dry flies here in the summertime, sometimes using a small bug, like a tiny green machine, for example, which is a buck bug meant to be fished under the surface as a wet fly. That one's a little small, I think. I'm going to go for probably a small green buck bug. I think I have one here with a white tail that I quite like. So I'm just going to head to the top of the pool here and start here and then just work my way down. It's a very short little swing, maybe 5 minutes. Rest the pool for 5 minutes, hope for another fish coming in. So again, we want to start short because the fish could be moving up the pool. They'll go right through here within feet of us. So just a few short casts to start. Swinging into the slick. And then we just lengthen a little bit of line until we've got a comfortable medium length of line out. And then we use our feet to proceed down the rest of the pool. It's a great time of night to be here too. We're just before the last light. We probably have maybe 45 minutes of light left. And often fish will start to move in the evening and will run the river a length during the nighttime. So again, I have a comfortable sort of medium length of line out, and I'm just moving a little bit at a time using my feet to just walk down. And you notice I'm not in the water because the fish can move so close to us that you don't want to be standing in their way and push them off. So I'm standing on dry land, and that really is the best way to approach a pool that isn't particularly large and where you don't want to spook the fish who might be laying very, very close to you. It was a lovely evening's fishing session, but unfortunately without any big tugs on the line. No matter, hope always springs eternal for the salmon fisher, and tomorrow always offers us the promise of another chance. It's been a grand first day on the magical Margaree. Sleep will come easy tonight. It was another beautiful morning in the Margaree Valley, with the weather forecast calling for another bright sunny day and warm temperatures. I decided to head down to a favorite pool on the lower river to cast my fly and try my luck for a bright summer salmon. So, we're on one of the larger lower river pools below the forks where the water is larger. We're not too far from the head of tide. So this is one of those pools where fresh fish can show up anytime throughout the day, often moving in the evening and being found in the morning. We started off with a dry fly, which we're working through the pool right now, choosing certain seams to probe. As we move down the pool, we'll go down as far as the lower chute of the pool, and then we'll switch up, I think, to a wet fly, go back up to the top and swing through. It gives two totally different presentations, a surface floating and then a subsurface swinging, which covers more water. And even though dry flies are very much preferred at this time of the year with the water temperature that we have, wet flies will still work, particularly smaller ones. So I'll probably put on a smaller one here in a moment. But first, we're going to finish this pool. So as you work a dry fly, particularly a bomber, if it doesn't have a front-facing horn or wing at the front, then your bug will eventually, the deer hair will get saturated with water and it'll float less and it will sink. And that's fine. One of the nice things about the bomber is that it's useful both on the surface dry, but when it starts to get waterlogged, you can let it float as long as it'll float. And then when it goes under, as it goes down the current, you can let it go underneath and swing it like a wet fly. So you're actually getting kind of two presentations. You're getting the dry float, and then when it goes under, you're getting the wet swing, making the bugs very, very versatile in that way. You don't have to fish them exclusively dry. You can fish them wet like the buck bugs, which are designed specifically for wet fly fishing. Well, I'd say we've given the dry fly a good go, a good chance. And like I said, we're gonna switch it up now, put a small wet fly on and go through the pool again because that presentation will be different. All right, and now of course the eternal conundrum, which fly to pick? There's so many wet flies and every one of them looks delicious, but I know for a fact that yesterday somebody hooked a fish here on a raw special, and somebody hooked one down at Seal Pool on a raw special. And the raw special is a native Margaree fly. It was invented in the 1940s, I believe. It's a fairly simple fly. red body, yellow throat, squirrel tail wing, a little silver tinsel tag, and jungle cock crest or golden pheasant crest tail. Very simple, often very effective, and I know it's been working lately, so in a small size, this might be just the business. So I think I'll tie that one on. All right, so we're up at the very top of the pool, and we are standing on a gravel bar, a very shallow gravel bar that then drops into a big dark hole all around here. The river splits in two directions, with the majority of the water coming through here, and fish will often hold in this big bowl. By being up here, I can cast out on the right-hand side to that current seam, let it swing in. It's a fairly short swing, and then hold it on the dangle for a minute. And then I can use the same length of line, switch sides, go to the left, and swing it off that gravel bar and into the hole, which is a very good presentation, and you get a longer drift on the left-hand side. Then we'll move across the gravel bar and end up on the left side and fish it from the right. It just provides different angles, different swings through this big dark hole. And you're kind of working the current to your advantage. So right-hand side, comes straight, sits on the dangle for a second. If you want to, you can use the hand over hand retrieve. Sometimes it just brings the fly over top of the fish and then they grab it. Regardless, you just want to cover as much of the dark bowl, the deep hole, as possible. Well, we gave it the old college try, as they say. Had a couple of different bugs through here, a nice wet through here. So we've seen a couple of fish, but we haven't been able to get them to grab. Really looking forward to tomorrow, and my good friend and one of the top guides on this river and in Cape Breton in general, Robert Chesson, will be joining us. And he's pretty dialed in and knows all the spots, so I think he'll increase our chances of success exponentially. And then I decided to head down to the famous Forks Pool. All right, so we're at the very top of Forks Pool, where the southwest Margaree meets the northeast Margaree right here and forms the beginning of the lower river, the widest section of the river, the biggest pools. This is the very top of the pool, and the first taking spot is right down that funnel where the fast water meets the southwest current, and there's always fish holding in here. This is a pool that always has some fish in it, and sometimes quite a few, and then it just continues all the way down as far as the eye can see. I'm going to try a little wet fly here at the top. This is a small green moose hair fly of my own design. I tied 20 some years ago, and my friends started using them and catching fish, so they nicknamed it the Rock and Ray. It was kind of nice. I'm going to give it a try. All right, so we've made it through the head of the pool and the faster water, and now the water's starting to slow down and get glassy as it continues down, and this is ideal dry fly water. So I've decided to tie on a bomber, no surprise, and this pool will have probably seen several dozen brown bombers by now, and maybe a few orange and whites, and God knows what else, but I bet they haven't seen the Newfoundland bumblebee. So I'm gonna try something just a little bit different than most of the other bugs they've seen. See if it works. I'm happy to run into Al Poole, one of the top rods on the river and a regular at Forks Pool.
I've been fishing this river for 39 years now, and one of the biggest draws is the scenery. If you find yourself fishing here in the fall, you will spend more time looking at the trees than you will at the river. It's just a comfortable, easy place to be. A new angler that comes to a pool with a bunch of regulars, the first thing you should do is watch for a while. And the second thing is ask questions. The locals would rather have you ask questions than do things wrong, like wading too deep or crossing in the wrong place. So the best advice is just ask questions. Guys are more than happy to help.
And with those sage words from the mayor of Forks Pool, it was time to call it a day. Back at the Normoway, I enjoyed some wonderful Celtic music in the music room before turning in for the night. Dawn broke cool and cloudy, with a front moving in, bringing the promise of rain. A bump of water in the river right now would be ideal. It would get the fish in the pools excited and moving upstream. And fresh fish who are in the ocean waiting to come in will feel that freshwater push out into the ocean, and they'll come in. So you get both a mixing and changing of the fish that are already in the river, and you get fresh fish on top. There he is. There he is. Happy camper, folks. Finally a hookup. It's really important to have a good drag set properly so he can take line without breaking him off, but having enough resistance to tire him. I'm not touching the reel. It's doing its job. Yes, sir. Little violence on the surface, I will take it. Oh! And he's off. We didn't snap him, we didn't break him off. That happens. We know there's gonna be more fish in there. We've seen a number, so I think what we'll do is we'll just give him a different wet fly. We'll pick a different wet fly out of the box and try that run one more time. But I also have to confess that I'm very tempted to try this pattern, which I tied up this winter. It's a Willie Gun, which is an old Scottish pattern, but it's tied in the Scandinavian flamethrower style. So let's give old Willie Gun a try, shall we? The old William Gun. Pattern, the original pattern is probably 200 or more years old. I'm using a short line in this roily water with all these conflicting currents to keep some measure of control on how the fly drifts. If I'm casting 60 feet of line, sure I can do it. My fly might be way down there, but the line's going to be like this. It's not going to be a smooth, you know, swing. It's not going to be a smooth swing. It's going to be, you know, the fly's going to get pulled in funny directions. It's not going to drift right. But by using a shorter line, where I just want to get it across to the other side, little mend, and then I kind of hold some of the line off the water so it doesn't get pulled in funny directions and create all these snaky, weavy sort of curls in your line. You do ideally want to present the fly in a kind of a smooth and consistent manner, but the roily water and the boulders and the conflicting currents make that difficult. The best thing to do is short line. All right, one more. Long cast. There he is. There he is. Oh. Nice, way down there. Now here's where that large arboreal comes into play. You can reel in a lot of line quickly. Look, he's going right past us. He's going up. Reel's doing his job. Oh, another big fish. Sweet. Oh, with the big girl. There we go. Got her. Sweet. Oh, beauty. Look. The Willy gun does the business. Wow. Oh no, I got a wet arm. I love when that happens. Wow. And then it was time to head downriver and meet up with my old pal, Robert Chasson. Well, folks, we're so delighted to be joined by my good buddy and without a doubt the top guide on this river for at least 20 years or more, Robert Chasson, Shetty Camp, Nova Scotia. It's just so good to be with you again. We're going to fish together for the next few days. I'm delighted. We're here in mid-July. How's the season been? Where are we at?
The season's been good. We had a wet June. Kick-started the season in about mid-June. And we've had a few nice rains since. The last week to 10 days has been a bit dry.
It has, yeah.
Fishing's been still okay, but a little more challenging.
It has, yep.
And then we just got some rain, which actually has freshened things up this morning. I'm at the head of the pool, and I'm fishing pretty fast water, so I'm fishing a blue charm wet fly. I'm casting downstream at about a 45-degree angle so that my fly doesn't swing through the fast water too fast. There he is. I think it's a grill.
Strong, eh?
He is. Good job, Ray.
Go. Right on, Robert.
Atta boy.
Nice grills.
Very nice. Some sea lice on it.
So it's fresh from the sea in the last few days. And there he goes, strong and
Right
free.
on, buddy.
Right on. Well, Robert, that was a sweet choice to come here. You were successful. That was really nice. Silvery grills, sea lice, meaning that there's still fresh fish coming in from the ocean.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And so, with a landed salmon each under our belt, we headed upriver to try a couple of spots with hopes of continued good luck.
Well, Ray, this is a great spot for dry flies.
Yeah, it looks very much like that. I don't think the water's come up very much yet.
Not yet, it doesn't look.
Well, folks, we've had a great day here on the river today. We've had some success after a few blank days, and it was great to finally hook up with Robert and to fish with him and watch him hook one. That was really, really nice.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, and we've tried our dries and wets, and this is a good bet, but water's still a little low. Now we've had some rain. Hopefully we'll get some more overnight, bump the river, maybe even bring it up substantially. That would set us up nicely for tomorrow, but I'm quite excited about the potential for tomorrow. Whether the river rises much or at all, I think that we still have a great chance. The river's full of fish, and it's been a good day, but I think I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little tired. I'm ready to go back to the normal way for a nice supper and maybe an early night.
Looking forward to tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy.
Okay. All right, so it's morning here on the Margaree River. We're here just in time for the shotgun start at 6 a.m. In Nova Scotia on salmon rivers. Legally, you're only allowed to start fishing at 6 a.m. So we're here for that.
Ray, this is a good dry fly pool in these conditions. So rather than step you up on the shelf, which I would do if you were fishing wet,
right?
I'm going to step you down here, and you're going to be casting off the drop-off right here off of that shelf.
Okay.
Cover the water in close first. Work your way across to the main flow. And then mostly stay this side, just on the inside edge of the main flow as you proceed through the pool.
Well, I gave it my best try, but this is a challenging situation for me. It's a very long cast across a lot of water, and we have an upstream wind that's blowing today. So I'm finding as I get the cast all the way over there, then the wind is blowing my fly upstream. And yeah, I had to pull out because I've completely leader wrapped my own fly. It's a bit of a mess that happens, and I'm gonna have to sit down and untangle this. While I do that, let's watch Robert Chesson go through here under the same adverse conditions and show us how it's done and how to get around some of those challenging conditions.
All right, Ray, I'm gonna give it a go. Things are challenging for me too, for sure. Bit of an upstream wind.
We got some white caps on the water down there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try casting a little more into the wind and try to use the wind to my advantage. But it is challenging to fish dry in these conditions. I'm using a roll cast from here because the overhead cast is more problematic with catching wind. And on my delivery, on my forward cast, I'm reaching, trying to land my line above my fly so that the fly doesn't chase the leader or the line downstream. I'm looking for a nice, natural, drag-free drift, which is difficult to achieve in this wind. When fishing dries, my experience tells me that the fish oftentimes, soon after the fly lands, the fish will rise to take your fly if it's gonna come. So I concentrate on short drifts, 6 to 8 foot drifts, pick up, cast again. Little challenging to get that natural dead drift because the wind seems to be at the end just kicking the fly upstream, which is not the presentation I'm looking for, but we have to work through that. Well, that was a tough pass. Wind is blowing upstream. It's probably time to revert to wet flies. Wait for that wind to die off a little bit.
So what are you going to select for a wet fly swing? Oh, the blue charm.
I'm gonna try a blue charm.
That is one of those universal flies that seems to work everywhere.
Well, and the reason I'm choosing this fly size is that it's appropriate for the water conditions.
Right, not a really big one, not a really small one. We'll get out there and show us how it's done, sir.
Alrighty. The technique I'm employing right now is a hand-over-hand retrieve. This pool right now, the conditions, the water conditions are a little more conducive to dry fly, just beautiful dry fly flow. However, it's still possible to fish a wet fly. but it's tough to get a very wide swing through the current. So by employing the hand-over-hand retrieve, it allows the fly to move from left to right in this instance, because we're fishing from the right bank, and continue on its swing. So this technique is not so much to give the fly action as it is to just help the fly move along on its swing.
All right, folks, well, we've given it the old college try here under somewhat tough conditions with the wind. Saw a few fish, but weren't able to connect. So we're going to reposition. We're going to go further upriver, try and find a spot where maybe we're a little more protected from the wind and can get a dry fly drift and a better wet fly swing. So let's reposition.
Certainly.
And so it was onwards and upwards. But first, a quick stop to refuel was in order. So we decided to stop in at the Dancing Goat Cafe and Bakery, located in the mid-river section of the valley along the Cabot Trail. The Dancing Goat is an institution in these parts, and always busy with locals, tourists, and anglers. The food here is absolutely delicious, and the coffee first rate, and much appreciated. Sufficiently sufficed and pleasantly pleased, after a hearty breakfast, we made our way upriver to the next pool. I was keen to try the pool I had luck at yesterday, but when we got there, we saw we weren't alone, which of course is to be expected on a public river like this one.
We've arrived at the pools here and we notice there's two anglers. So there's a rotation etiquette in place on the Margaree, and you always start at the top of the pool. So Ray and I are going to start behind these anglers in rotation. You'd never step below an angler. And the Margaree River is a very, very friendly river. People are helpful, and most pools have benches. So if there's anybody sitting on the bench, they're most likely waiting to step in rotation. So it's always good practice to talk to the people on the bench if you arrive at a pool, and everybody's polite, and they will let you know where the rotation starts and how we fish the rotation.
It's been a little tough today.
A little bit windy today.
A little bit, 60 to 70 kilometer an hour gusts, and blowing our fly lines and flies upstream. Tough day for dry flies. But you know, dealing with adverse weather conditions is part of the salmon game, isn't it?
That's it. And you just got to be persistent and keep casting. And that's what we're planning on doing.
Okay. After trying several other spots and punching through a wicked wind all day without success, the wind finally started to die down as evening approached. So we decided it was probably safe now to head downriver to the open floodplain of the lower river, where fresh water and the ocean tide play a twice daily rhythmic dance up and down the estuary, and where fresh salmon will often first appear. Well, after a really tough day of fishing and very high winds up and down the river, it's evening now. The wind is finally subsiding, and we've decided to make an approach here in the lower river. This is the first wadable pool on the river. It's a place where the tidal push comes up the estuary, and fish often come up with it and then begin running the river. It's a very popular pool, it's a very productive pool, and we hope that it makes up for the earlier part of the day and we'll get a fish. Let's give it a go. There he goes. Nice jump. Oh, what a nice big fish he is. Fresh from the sea. So I drifted a few bomber drifts down here and just past that little green patch of grass island sort of thingy over there. He just came nice and smooth. Whoop, took the fly, set the hook, and a couple of jumps now. Okay, don't head toward that dead tree.
Keep coming in, right?
Yeah, strong fish.
Certainly is.
You want to wait out and we try another attempt here? I'm really nervous about that tree. Another fish just jumped below it. Oh, I think he's turning. Hold it. There he goes again.
He's starting to tire.
Yeah, he's starting to get tired.
There he is.
Ah, yeah, baby!
Beauty. Way to be, Ray. That's a big fish.
That is a big fish.
Very big fish.
Wow, what a fish. Thank you, big fella. Good luck on your journey. There he goes.
What a way to end the day, Ray.
Yes, it was a tough day, all right, in the early part, but we were rewarded here at the end, and I just couldn't be happier. I mean, a 20-pounder, that may be the fish of the season for me, and I'm just really excited now to come back. I'm ready to go.
Looking forward to tomorrow.
All right, well, let's get some sleep, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Early morning broke hazy and warm over the Margaree Valley as we arrived at Seal Pool. This is the largest pool on the lower river and one of the most popular for very good reason. It tends to hold a lot of fish. It's always a very social affair at the benches at the most popular pools, where you're rarely alone. Coffee and tea is poured, stories and jokes are told, and flies and advice are freely given. This morning, we're delighted to run into a few young angler friends of ours at the bench, here to stretch a line and perhaps connect with a silver bullet. Aaron Crick from Niagara Falls, Ontario. Jacob Lorifus from Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And Toby Gow from Wolfell, Nova Scotia. These young men are part of a growing contingent of new young anglers taking up the sport and discovering the magic and the challenge of Atlantic salmon fishing. Boundlessly energetic and enthusiastic, and often quite innovative in style, these young guns truly are the new fly fishers, the next generation of salmon anglers. They and their cohort will be here to carry on the long tradition of salmon angling and will soon become the conservation leaders and defenders of our rivers and wild fish that they will always need. And that is a very good thing indeed.
Well, my name is Aaron Crick. I first started coming to the Margaree when I was 13 on family vacation, and I fell in love with the place, kept coming back, and I hired Robert as my guide a number of times, and we caught some nice fish together. I've been coming back every year since. I fell in love with the valley and its people and the fish, and now I want to gear my life towards the fish as well. I'm in university for marine and freshwater biology, and I'm hoping to help conserve this species in the future.
On the Margaree, it's all in for conservation and protecting the river and its salmon. Joining us on the bench and in the rotation this morning was our good friend Kyle Denny from Eskasoni First Nation, the largest Mi'kmaq community in Nova Scotia. A retired teacher and accomplished salmon angler, Kyle is one of a small but growing number of Mi'kmaq fishers who are picking up the sport of fly fishing. Kyle is also an Indigenous steward of the rivers and now works for the Unamaki Institute of Natural Resources and sits on the board of the Margaree Salmon Association, both of whom do wonderful work taking care of this precious resource.
I'm a board member for the protection of the Balamu, which is Mi'kmaq term for the Atlantic salmon. And we protect the salmon for all the rivers in the Unamaki. We want to be proactive to make sure that the salmon are protected, that we make the right decisions to make sure whether it's closing down rivers when needed and to continue monitoring because it's constantly changing. The river's constantly changing over year after year, and different pools need more attention. And both the Unamaki Institute of Natural Resources and Margaree Salmon Association are working together to collect data and to be more proactive in making the right decisions.
As the morning wore on, and as much as we enjoyed the camaraderie, it was time to head upriver and find a spot that was a little less crowded and try and find a fish.
Let's talk about dry fly presentation. In order to achieve a drag-free drift fishing a dry fly, I like to cast at a downstream angle. If I know the lie where the fish is laying, as opposed to landing the fly 10 or 20 feet above the fish, I like to land the fly just 2 or 3 feet above where I know he's laying. Not always, but usually a salmon will come up to a dry fly soon after it drops to the surface. So I concentrate on 6 or 8 foot drifts, pick up, and cast again in the same spot. The cast I like to use to achieve a drag-free drift is a parachute cast. So as opposed to following through with my cast like I do on a wet fly to land fully extended, I make a cast that I stop a little early and then I drop my arm. It presents the necessary slack in the line in order to achieve that dry fly drag-free drift. And I concentrate on short drifts, pick up, and cast again.
It was lunchtime, and we were getting pretty hungry, so we decided to head on down the road following the curvaceous Cabot Trail south to Big Spruce Brewery in Nyanza, Cape Breton along the Yankee Line Road. Nova Scotia is blessed with many fine craft breweries, cideries, and wineries, and in my opinion, Big Spruce is one of the best. It's a wonderful place to stop in for some hearty pub-style fare from the food truck and an ice-cold craft beer from the outdoor tap room. The food at Big Spruce was great, and the beer was even better. If you're visiting Nova Scotia, be sure to seek out some of the fabulous craft breweries, cideries, and wineries here. You won't be disappointed. Same goes for the seafood. Refreshed and replenished once again, we headed back to the river to try Forks Pool. The afternoon was warm and bright on the river. We ran into our young pal Toby, who was excitedly casting to rolling fish he was spotting at the head of the pool. He said they had just turned on and he was doing his level best to attract one to his fly. But so far, they seemed to be just toying with him. But he wasn't giving up. So we watched this budding young salmon angler work the water for a while, offering words of encouragement and the odd bit of advice. Toby is a natural-born angler, and he's putting in his time and coming along just fine. It's a pleasure to watch. Our tackle setups for this show were pretty straightforward and standard fare for summer salmon fishing. We used 9 to 10 foot, 8-weight, single-handed rods with floating weight forward lines on large arbor reels and 10 to 12 foot leaders tapering down to 8 to 6 pound test. We used a lot of dry flies, as you do in summer salmon fishing. These included winged bombers like the grizzly bomber, brown bomber, and green bomber. Unwinged bomber flies included the Carter's bug in both dark and light versions, brown bug yellowtail, the bumblebee, and the cravette bug. We also used a number of effective wet fly patterns, including hair-wing wet flies like the Undertaker, black bear green butt, blue charm, the Kosoboom special, and the Ross special, as well as medium-sized streamers like the white muddler, green slime muddler, and the Willie Gun flamethrower. The day was getting long and the fishing was slow, so we booked it back to home base at the Normway to get cleaned up and have a bit of a rest before supper.
Hi, I'm Dave McDonald from the historic Normway Inn. I just want to say we've been lucky enough to be around for almost 100 years, welcoming people from all over the world, both fishermen and people who just want to see the beautiful places that Cape Breton has to offer.
Located on an expansive 250-acre property, the Normway Inn features the main lodge with 9 bedrooms, a large living room where local musicians play most evenings, and a lovely large dining room where breakfast and suppers are served and packed lunches can be made. Outside the main lodge, there are 6 white cottages with 1 and 2 beds, 11 green chalets, and 3 suites with 1 and 2 beds, some with jacuzzis and wood stoves. The Normway is my personal favorite place to stay when I'm in the Margaree area.
There is so much within a short drive. 1 hour in any direction from this property, you are in the middle of some of the greatest stuff that Canada has to offer. If you're interested in staying at the Normway, take a look at our website and you can book online. If you have questions that need to be answered, just give us a call.
That evening, we met up with a couple of good friends who'd just arrived, Charles Gaines and his daughter Greta from Alabama and Tennessee, respectively. We made plans with Charles and Greta to meet up the next morning, and then we hit the sack and went straight to Dreamland, where the fish are always rising to our flies. It was our last day on the river, and we were once again up early to meet it. In the summertime, particularly on warm, sunny days, mornings are often the best time of the day to catch fish. But this morning, we start the day under a thick blanket of river fog formed overnight, which will burn off as the sun rises. Another old rule of thumb holds that this is the moment when the salmon are most likely to take your fly. And some believe that the salmon won't take a fly until the fog lifts. I've seen it happen myself enough times to believe there's something to this. And then Charles and his dog Count arrived through the fog and across the river. Charles Gaines is without a doubt one of the most interesting men I've ever met. Originally from Birmingham, Alabama, Charles has led several fascinating lives in his brief 80 years here on the planet. First as an academic, and then as a best-selling author and Hollywood screenplay writer. In 1974, one of his first novels became a bestseller, which became a big hit movie called Pumping Iron. It introduced the world to a young Austrian bodybuilder phenom named Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the two have been fast friends ever since. Having published 25 award-winning books, including 2 collections of essays on angling. He also became a ski instructor, rock climber, winter mountaineer, champion canoer, And somewhere along the line, he and a few of his buddies invented the game of paintball. A lifetime angler and sportsman, Charles has traveled and fished the globe several times over, landing multiple species on 5 continents. And so with all of his experience and the ability to fish anywhere in the world he likes, I had to ask him the obvious question. Why does he keep coming back to this place and this river?
Well, there are a number of answers to that question. The first would be that I love this valley. I loved it from the first minute I saw it, and from the first minute I saw it, which was now over 40 years ago, I decided I wanted to have a place here. I love the valley, I love the people, I love the river. As you know, Ray, it's not an easy river, and the very challenges of the river are part of what interests me. I love it that it's a public river. Another reason is that, you know, there are 2 reasons to fish a river. One is because you've never fished it before, and because it's something you want to try out. And so I have been lucky enough to be able to travel to everywhere I've ever wanted to go to try the next valley over, which is the title of one of my books, to try the river in the next valley over. That's one reason. But the other reason is because it's a home river, and you come to love it because of that. It's a river that you go back to, you get to know it better and better and better. It's sort of like the differences when you're a young guy, you date a lot of girls, right? And there are not too many girls for you to date. And then finally you find one that you want to settle down with. That's sort of been my story.
Meanwhile, Robert put on a dry fly and headed back to the top of the pool to make another pass. And that's when I saw our young friend Toby Gow fishing above us and huffing big line out over the center of the pool to a suspected salmon lie. When he was done, I invited Toby over and introduced him to Charles, a meeting of the generations. And I asked Toby roughly the same question about his experience as a young new angler on the Margaree and why he keeps coming back. From 18 to 80, the answers are pretty much the same.
A lot of people think it's just an old guy sport, but there's a lot of young anglers, there's a lot of women anglers, which is great to see, and everyone's just kind of congregated as this one big family. Now I pretty much feel like I have a connection, if you will, to this river in a way that almost like you have a connection to a friend. And it's like you can't leave them for that long. You have to come back, you got to talk to them, you got to visit, everything. You got to spend time with it. And so it just feels like if I didn't have it, I'd be missing something almost. And I'm grateful to still have it, and I hope that we can conserve it for a long time so that other people can feel the same way that I feel about this river.
I really like this kid. As we were talking, and just as the last of the river fog was burning off, Robert's line suddenly came tight right on time.
Come here.
Attaboy, Ray.
Well done, buddy.
Yeah. Following Robert's success, Charles decided to give the pool another quick pass. And then it was time to weigh anchor and head downstream to meet up with Greta. Greta Gaines is an accomplished singer-songwriter based in Nashville, Tennessee, and was the first women's world extreme snowboard champion and an extreme sports commentator for MTV and ESPN. Perhaps more importantly, having grown up with a fly rod in her hand from a young age, she is no slouch with an 8-weight, as my buddy Robert guides her through the pool. Clearly, a chip off the old block. And then we went down to the tidal pool. This morning, I'm content to just hang back on the bank and enjoy watching my friends fish. I was still feeling the afterglow of catching that big salmon the other evening and was hoping one of them would get one. I was just happy to be here. And that's something I know my buddy Robert understands too.
This is my 31st year as a guide on this river. The reason I enjoy this sport so much is it's almost an escape from the normal pressures of life. When you spend time in nature and the outdoors and you take time to smell the roses, as they say, nothing else matters. Once you get hooked on salmon fishing, it's hard to stay away from the river.
Indeed it is, especially on a river as beautiful, accessible, and approachable as the Margaree. Cape Breton is also a great place for a family vacation, a couple's getaway, or an epic buddy road trip with loads of things to see and do. To plan your trip to Nova Scotia, just visit novascotia.com. And for more information on fishing the Margaree and other watersheds in the province, visit fishnovascotia.ca. As much fun as we were having, and as hard as it is to pull yourself away from such a beautiful river, it was time to pull the plug. So we said goodbye to our friends and hit the road, following the famous Cabot Trail north to the charming French-Acadian fishing village of Shetty Camp. We were pretty parched, so we stopped into the local Doryman pub for a frosty cold draft and a quick bite to eat, and to enjoy the weekly Saturday afternoon hoedown. Refreshed and refueled, we carried on further north into this spectacular Cape Breton Highlands National Park. The park covers 950 square kilometers of northern Cape Breton, conserving rare old-growth Wabanaki Acadian forests, wild mountain rivers, and important habitats for native animal species. It is a rugged, breathtakingly beautiful place where the Highland Mountains meet the Atlantic Ocean in spectacular style. It's also a wonderful place for exploration and outdoor recreation, with world-class camping facilities and hiking trails and loads of activities that allow the visitor to get up close and personal with nature. The spectacular coastal drive along the northern section of the Cabot Trail was worth the price of admission alone. It was a terrific way to end our trip to Cape Breton Island. Wow, what a great time we've had on Cape Breton Island and fishing the beautiful Margaree River.
Well, it certainly was a fun time, Ray. We persevered through some adverse conditions and we still managed to have some success.
We did, and I want to thank you so much for fishing with us and for guiding us, Robert.
Well, you're very welcome, Ray. It's always a pleasure and it's always a good time when we're together on the river.
Indeed it is, and I want to thank the staff at the Normanway Inn for taking such good care of us while we've been here, and to all the friends that we met along the way, and most especially to you for joining us on this adventure. For more information on this and other great adventures, visit us on the web at thenewflyfisher.com, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. We'll see you again for another great edition of The New Fly Fisher.
The New Fly Fisher is supported by Fish Nova Scotia, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada.